You're on.
Okay, we on?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Finance Committee of Mobile City Council. This meeting is designed today to discuss a proposed ordinance regulating food trucks in the city of Mobile. We have, in addition to myself, Joel Daves, chairman of the committee, we have Finance Committee members, Councilman John Williams and Councilman Fred Richardson. We have our city clerk and members of her staff. It looks like we have Ms. Rich. We have someone from Mayor Simpson's office.
Parks and Recreation.
And so we'll go ahead and get started. The format of this meeting today is merely to take public comment. There has been a great deal of interest in this ordinance. What we're going to do is we're going to move through those who care to make a public comment. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. At the end of are we going to give a warning, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, at the end of 2 minutes, you'll hear a buzzer. That means you have 1 more minute in which to speak. Please move quickly to wrap up your comments. As always, if you have any additional comments to make, you may send them to the city clerk via email or US mail. So please remember, if you want to revise and extend your remarks after you make your oral remarks today, there are plenty of opportunities in order that allow you to do that. So we'll go ahead and begin. Who's first up? Ms. Lambert?
Donald Torrance.
Okay, Mr. Torrance, if you would state your name and address, please, and you've got 3 minutes.
My name's Donald Torrance. I live at 1709 Larkwood Drive, Mobile, Alabama, 366-018. My concerns is about the time that you're allowing for food trucks to operate. As what I was looking at was the time frame that you have at cutting off at 10 o'clock. Well, that's really going to be detrimental to my business as well as other people because of where I'm operating in the situation that I'm operating in. The volume doesn't even start until after 12. So hopefully that you can look back and see, maybe we can have a revise on that issue as far as for some situation for some different food trucks, because a lot of us, we operate in different ways and different manners and different times. As it stands, that would be very, very unfair for my business to be operating, to have to stop operating at 10 p.m.
Okay, so you would like to see that time extended, and I understand your position is that many of the food truck operators rely on the business that occurs after midnight, correct?
Well, after midnight, yes, because usually I operate close to or by clubs, and the people that we don't even get a volume until they're actually getting ready to leave the club. So,
yeah. Well, in my younger days, I was there. Munchies at 1 a.m.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Surely.
Are you parked on their property when you do that?
I am on their property, yes.
I'd like to see maybe if we can put in an exception, if invited and welcomed on to private property, that there be no limit.
Yes, that would be great.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Ordinance section 4B15 says only operate on public right-of-way or property between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. That's public property, public right-of-way.
Oh, okay. He's good on his own property.
Are one invited onto a private party or private, so I didn't read it that way either. I read it that you can only be on public property and only from, so it's that, those times, maybe just a reading of it. I didn't get you that way either. So good, I'm glad I made the comment.
So the time, Mr. Arledge, the time limitation, the cutoff at 10 only applies if you're on public property or public right of way.
Yeah, and I can tweak that and clarify it to whatever time you want.
I think Mr. Torrance would be fine really with the way it is, because it wouldn't limit his, as long as he's on private property, he's not going to be shut down at 10. Is that correct, Mr. Torrance?
That's correct. That's correct. That was my concern.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Torrance.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, who's next, Miss Clerk?
Okay, next, I'm not sure who 3546 is. I think that's the city person. Bob Omansky.
I'm on, but I have no questions at this time.
Okay,
All right.
moving right along. Carol or Elizabeth, did you all want to make any comments?
Yeah, well, I would just say, I submitted a letter back in September where we had one major request, and that had to do with the decibel of the level, the maximum decibel level of any generator. Our request was that it not exceed 65 dBA instead of 80. These things are very loud. And maybe that's an urban versus suburban issue. I don't know, but they and quiet generators are absolutely available from a variety of sources. And so that was kind of our major request. And then we just had a bunch of just questions. Obviously one of them has been addressed by Mr. Torrance. That was that same question that we had asked, kind of, what that would mean. So I don't think you want me to go question by question, or you may. That's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
My preference would be for you to contact Mr. Arledge directly and ask him your questions. Mr. Arledge, do you have the list of questions that Ms. Stevens submitted earlier?
I do have that, and I've got notes that for answers to some of them too.
Unless the other members of the committee would like to have those questions iterated and answered, my suggestion would be let Mr. Arledge respond directly to Ms. Stevens.
Mr. Chair, I would just ask that those that, like Mr. Torrance, who are maybe joining us for the first time in a public forum, have an opportunity to give their email to us or a phone number so that all of those questions can be shared and reviewed prior to our next meeting.
Absolutely. If you would, those of you who would like to be privy to those questions and answers, then if you would provide your email address to the clerk, she'll be happy to make sure you get that. Is that, Ms. Stevens, is that all you, was that?
Well,
qualified?
that was the major one that we had a concern about. Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hunter, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that Elizabeth had prepared a pretty extensive list of questions. The only thing that I would add is, and this kind of comes out of what we've experienced in Bienville Square with some of the wonderful oak trees going down. I observed Friday night one of the hot dog vendors set up on underneath the oak trees there, which is a great place to set up. But we've got to get all activity off of the tree roots, and so that's a whole nother thing, and that can be set out in some of the parks discussions. But I just want us to start thinking about how we're going to maintain our tree canopy downtown, and it starts with even that level of activity.
Yeah, that's really more, I think that's really more of something for a parks regulation rather than this ordinance.
I think so too.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Okay, I have Dave, but I don't have a last name.
Dave, are you on?
I am McDaniel. Here I come.
Okay, would you give us
Okay.
your name and address, please?
Dave McDaniel, 48 North Sage Avenue. I'm with Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
Oh,
I am.
okay.
So it's fun that she brought up parks. But I'm actually calling about our food truck policy. And I've done some research regarding our other food trucks, other communities, our surrounding community, our surrounding sister cities, and just how they interact. And so one of our main things, let me first of all, let me start by saying hello to everyone. And one thing that we would like to start with is that anybody that's stationary more than 15 minutes, that they have to get a license. Because if you're there more than 15 minutes, that you are an actual vendor. And that's the issue that we're running into on the weekends, that you have someone that's there and they're there for hours on end and they don't want to move, and it's becoming an issue because one person does it, then you have two people that do it. And then, if I feel like I can do it, then Councilman Richardson feels that he can do it, and then it just becomes a headache for everyone. So if we can ask that, if that's looked at, then that's one thing. Also, and I'll send this to everyone, but with a charging a fee, a $20, $25 fee for food trucks to operate for within the city, a fee associated when they want to get their license. $25 per day to operate a food truck. And we really want to start making this a joint effort where when you get your business license and you want to get a food truck license, that it starts there, get your license, then you come to Parks and Recreation, and then you go to the health department, and then because a lot of people don't know, all you have to do right now is go to the health department, and then you get a sticker from the fire department. That's all you really have to do to operate a food truck. And then that's it. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to have a business license or anything else. And I know that for a fact because I did the research. You don't have to have a business permit or anything else. And that's really becoming an issue because you have a lot of businesses that are out here that shouldn't be out here, and all I do is take one person to get someone sick, and we all will have issues. But like I said, I have a proposal that I wrote up for the city council that I would email to the city clerk, and I asked that everybody look over it and just take it into consideration, please.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Richardson?
okay, this is dealing with the issue that just was raised by Mr. Daniels. I do believe that if you're going to conduct any kind of business in the city of Mobile, you have to have a license. I don't care what it is. You just can't start up a business and not get permission from the city to start the business. So at some point you got to go to the city, go to City Hall and get a license to transact business in the city of Mobile. Over and above going to the fire department and going to the Board of Health, you got to go to the city of Mobile and get your license.
Mr. Chair, I would hope that we can discuss with the fire department and the health department that they do not take any action until they are recognized by the city of Mobile. And I don't want to get too much bureaucracy. I mean, I don't think that we ought to treat a food truck any different than we would treat someone who delivered to a city property. Because when we start doing that, we're really just regulating unnecessarily certain industries.
Oh,
So,
excuse me. I was just correct. I apologize. You do have to get your business license. I apologize before you can get your food truck. I apologize. So excuse me.
Mr. Williams, let Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams,
oh, yes, Mr. Davis.
I was just making sure you completed your comments.
Yeah, and I guess I want to make clear is that I don't want to, as we go through this process, we should never be imposing something on a food truck that we do not impose on those who deliver or cater, whatever you want to call it, on a city property. So business license, perfectly reasonable. Health department, perfectly reasonable. But when we start saying that every day that you operate, you owe us $25, well, if we did that to the brick and mortar, some certain fee, I'm not sure that any of us would agree to that. So just throwing that out there.
I don't
I
disagree.
look forward to seeing all the other comments. I wish I'd already had seen them.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
McDaniel, if you would just go ahead and send that to the clerk, she'll make sure we get it, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, we have a fire drill that's going on now. An emergency has been reported.
Well,
You know what? Can you put the list up on the board or email us the list and we'll keep going?
Well, I've let everyone in, so they're in the meeting. I have Frederick, I have James on here. I don't have last names for them. And I have Taylor, Atchison.
Okay, we'll get it.
Also. So they're all in the meeting, and they can just unmute if they wish to speak.
Okay. See y'all when you get back.
okay. Hey, Lisa, would you mute yourself?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I see James's iPhone. James, do you have anything you want to say to us? You're muted, James.
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Okay.
I've read the ordinance. And
Give us your name, James. Give us your name and address first, please.
Jim Walker, 602 Church Street, Mobile, Alabama, 36602. I mean, I've read the entire ordinance, and there's no enforcement now. It's like it's been about a year ago. I walked in front of the Larkin Center, and someone's serving a cooler of drinks, and it's got raw chicken in it at the same time. So I snatched the cooler up, took it to my restaurant, ran everything through the dish machine, put the chicken in bags, and brought it back. When I got back, one of the police officers standing there asking me what I was doing, and I told him. And there's no enforcement now, and the $25 a day, y'all are going to have more administrative cost in that than it's going to be worth. The generator decibel, I think the national parks is 68 to 72 decibels on a generator. I don't think 65 is achievable unless you shroud it. And, Friday night, the hot dog vendors are coming down and it's a free for all, and there's no enforcement at all. People are supposed to have a commissary. They're supposed to be within 3 miles of their commissary. They're supposed to have a health department permit. There's none of that going on now. And I don't see how that putting the food trucks out from when I did the 300-foot radius from an existing food service business. There's a little spot by the Archbishop's house that you end up with. It's about 90 feet that you can do once you put the corner, the 300-foot from a brick and mortar, you do there's nowhere downtown to really serve. And I mean, it's like y'all are all admitting that you hadn't been down here after midnight. I mean, it's a totally different animal.
I have.
Let Mr. Walker go ahead and finish.
I mean, I've got a ton of stuff that I sent the clerk as far as as far as ideas. Let's see.
You got about a
I mean-
minute left, Mr. Walker.
That's fine.
Okay, you finished?
No, but you can turn me off.
Oh, no, I see you got a minute.
No,
You
not
got-
at all.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, nobody knows what they're doing, and this food truck ordinance is just, I mean, it eliminates food trucks from downtown, and it's like there's a thing in there, no coal, no fire. I mean, that's the newest trend, and all the trends in the restaurant business as far as street food. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, maybe end up out of a brick and mortar back to some type of portable food truck, and you're attacking an industry that's been attacked by COVID wide open. And I just don't see patronizing a few people that are upset about food trucks downtown to eliminate what people may have to go back to for actual living. And I mean, it seems like very odd timing to me. And I know that Matt Golden at Beer Gardens complained, and David Rasmus complained at Heroes. And you're going to put an ordinance in that is, you're not even enforcing the threshold now. There's no health department after 5. There's no city inspector after 5. There's no enforcement at all. And there's people down there with no food permits, they have no idea what they're doing with food.
Walker, that's your time. Thank you
Perfect.
very much.
You're
Mr.
very
Wood,
welcome.
you have something?
If I may, first of all, this has been going on for a long time. We've been trying to address it and make it reasonable. So take a little bit of exception, but I will just leave it at that. The fact is, there has been open discussion between all the players about the decibel and whether or not it was achievable, and whether or not we ought to close down, not say you got to be 300 away, but simply all agree, let's find some spaces. If you believe there is places where a truck should be allowed, that there is no reason why trucks should not be allowed, then let's start identifying those spaces. And rather than it being a prohibitive ordinance, it's a permissive ordinance. And simply lays down that everyone has to go by the health department. We don't control the health department. If they choose to inspect you 3 times a week and nobody else, we have no authority over that. And we understand that some people feel like that. But no, this is not being done for Mr. Rasp or I forgot the other gentleman, the beer garden. This is not being done for them. That's not being done for them. We simply want there to be a harmonious downtown, and there's been a lot of work to make it such. And look, the reason we have this meeting right now is so we can hear from you. So I look forward to seeing your comments, and this won't be the last meeting. And all of us that don't know what the hell we're doing, we'll try to pay attention to your notes, so that we will. And I mean that sincerely.
Have you been downtown after midnight?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I have. I'm a big fan of downtown, and I've been downtown more than I'd say most council members, or maybe more than all, but
After midnight.
After midnight.
We're gonna move along. Do we have someone else who'd like to talk to us today? Speak up.
I think that's it, Joe.
Mr. Dave?
Yes.
Mr. Dave? This is David Rasp, 1312 Chamberlain Avenue, Mobile, 36604. Just a quick note, I'm the proprietor of Heroes and the Royal Scam downtown. And I really just want to thank all 3 council members for their involvement, as well as the city clerk and her staff for their work on this. I think the main thing to remember here is, I don't know if anybody's completely against food trucks operating. I just think that if we looked at all our comparably sized cities, I'm not sure that any of them operate with absolutely no guidelines or an ordinance for such. So it's definitely very easy to point out perhaps maybe the deficiencies of the past, or maybe the need for such an ordinance. But I, for one, am again not opposed to the existence of food trucks, and am very much in favor of finding a way to make something that works for everybody, that doesn't keep anybody from having the chance to make a living. but that meets certain guidelines, as we all as business people are required to do. So I just really want to thank the council members and the city clerk's office and everyone else for their further involvement, input, and hopefully we're going to come up with something that's going to address some of the issues that have been brought forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rast. Do we have anybody else who'd like to address us today? Hearing none. This is your last chance.
Bess is trying to get to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not on the committee, but I just have, and I know I missed your beginning of your meeting, so I apologize. But from my perspective, I think that the parks are the complaints that I get for the food trucks, you know, leaving wrappers, and the noise is a big thing when they pull up and whatnot. So I take it this ordinance will talk about, and you had the parks representatives, so hopefully they'll be a big part, and either through their policy that we'll be part of and we could dovetail in, but it's more than just the downtown and finding space, because public space is city parks. And like I said, that I get complaints about the mess they leave and things that really we need to tighten up, and the inspection of if the food's safe.
Our business.
Anybody else?
Elizabeth is raising her hand.
So I guess this is a question for the city attorney. I thought that there were specific regulations for vending in a park that were kind of, and there was a process for being able to vend in a park and that kind of thing. But the comment was made earlier that there's no regulation on that. I guess I'd like to understand what the facts are.
I continue to believe that what happens inside the bounds of a park is an administrative issue that needs to be resolved by regulation. But Mr. Arledge, do you have any comment on that?
Well, we do need let me back up a little bit. The intent of this, getting this ordinance out there, was to start a discussion with all the interested parties and find out what we need, what works in Mobile, what doesn't work in Mobile, et cetera. So I drew up an ordinance, and honestly, I don't know anything about food trucks. So I looked at what other cities are doing and copied ideas from them, and added in the guidance that I did have. So as far as the parks and all go, I think we do need to work with them to find out, what do they want? How do they want it to work in their parks? I don't know what regulations they have right now. I'm 100% confident that littering is a criminal offense, and whether it's enforced or not, I don't know. But it's got some stuff about event permits and when you can set up in a park and when you can set up on public right of way and where, and all that just needs to be tweaked, but we need some constructive input as to how it works in the real world. So I've gotten an email this morning from Ms. Kessler. They do have some questions and have pointed out a few things, and I'm sure all these folks on here are going to do the same if they haven't already. Just get us the ideas, and it can all be hashed out.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm McCants. I'm from the Office of of our Parks and Recreation, and right now it's no ordinances or anything concerning a truck uh, in our parks and everything right now. We have tried in previous years to attempt to address the food truck and ice cream on trucks also, and also but it never actually happened. And now we have also been looking at other municipalities to look and see what others are on doing. We kind of started on our policy here a few months ago, and was really asked kind of yesterday in a hurry what our what our thoughts, ma'am, and everything were. And so as Mr. Daniels was trying to say earlier, and everything, we have a policy, but it is not anything permanent as of on yet, and that we are I know working right now to on tweak a lot of the of the items in there. And yes, also we agree about the litter and the noise, and certainly a time limit. And if the truck is there for a private event, or is it on there for on any other events? So we are also working with legal right now, Flo Kessler and all, to
you got 1 minute left, Mr. McCants. So if you could
come up with a better and a more and with a stronger policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McCants. We appreciate your comments.
Looks like the park director, she may want to add
Mr.
something.
Dave,
Yes.
Mr. Tyndall was not able to get in. He was having some trouble getting in on the Zoom. So he's now on, and he had comments that he wanted to make comments.
Okay, Mr. Tyndall, if you give us your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Scott Tyndall, 141 Silverwood Street, Mobile 36607.
You got 3 minutes, Tyndall.
Really, I just wanted to comment on the food truck ordinance, and most specifically the 300-foot regulation, and really on behalf of small businesses. So, I think each of you know me. We've had experiences in the past. This 300-foot regulation would basically put the food trucks out of business, because the regulation as it's written now, the ordinance doesn't specify any specifics other than a brick and mortar. And we don't define that. Does that mean a gas station that has food inside of it? Does that mean any brick and mortar inside the city? What we're essentially doing is, in the middle of a pandemic, putting these small business owners in a terrible position. And as Mr. Walker commented earlier, a lot of our brick and mortars may have to revert to some form of mobile unit in order to keep their business going and keep people alive. And, this is how they support themselves. They invested in this city when they invested in these food trucks, and they do pay taxes and they do the right thing. Then it just feels entirely unfair to create a regulation that would almost certainly put them out of business. Now, I also love my brick and mortar friends. I'm friends with almost all the restaurant owners downtown, and I understand their positions as well. I think part of what's happened here is we haven't had a good conversation with any of these food truck owners, but I've talked to each of them, and they're willing to and happy to come to the table and find a compromise that makes everybody happy, right? They don't want to hurt the brick and mortars. They just want to be able to do their job. And likewise, I've talked to Mr. Rasp and some of the folks downtown, and they don't want the food trucks to go out of business either, right? I think everybody wants everybody to succeed, and that's how we can do it best. But the ordinance as written now would not accomplish that. And it would really, really crush these small business owners in a time when we desperately need to be finding ways to help them.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Scott, good to see you again, by the way.
Sir.
I don't know if you heard my comment earlier. This, as our attorney pointed out, he just grabbed a bunch of stuff, put it together so that we'd have a format to discuss it based on what other people are doing. I agree with you. I don't think that we ought to say you can't do this and you can't do that and you must do this. I think it ought to be more of like some of our other ordinances that we have put together in the years, where we look for y'all to help us in what ought to be in there to help the future of this industry. And in very specific terms, I would appreciate it if y'all could put together a map of downtown or of other areas of interest where you operate, and say, we'd like to operate right here on this corner. We want to operate on this side of this street. We want to operate between, and in other words, let's get an overlay that tells every truck it's first come, first serve, or whatever y'all decide is the best way to handle that, to these spaces.
Mm-hmm.
That way we're not out there trying to measure. We're not, nobody's getting in a fight. You're either inside the orange lines, which are permitted, or you're not. If that, is something you think that might be helpful.
I think something like that is helpful. I think another part of that equation is that if a food truck that's not familiar with Mobile, maybe one comes over from Baldwin County that doesn't abide by the rules, what is the enforcement mechanism of that? So as Mr. Walker pointed out, if somebody pulls up at 11 o'clock at night, are the police department going to remove them? Are they going to tow them? These are all questions that food truck owners want to know, because the folks that I know in Mobile, they are responsible. They want to do the right thing. They want to abide by the rules. But I think people from outside of the city could come in, because it is a mobile unit, and maybe cause, some of the hiccups that we see now that are really hard to enforce. And so what I don't want to see is us create some kind of rule that restricts our law-abiding food truck owners, and then those that don't abide just have a free-for-all and do whatever they want, because the folks I know want to do the right thing. And if we set up those parameters, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to be in the proper spots, but then they may be unfairly punished by those that don't follow the rules if we don't have some form of some way to enforce that ordinance.
Yeah, if I could just make a couple comments and to piggyback on what Mr. Williams said, I think, Mr. Tyndall, what you've said is that the brick and mortar operators and the food truck operators are both interested in reaching resolution that is amenable to all of them. And where we've seen this really work is where the interested parties get together, as Mr. Williams has suggested, and come up with a plan themselves that they present to the city council. And I would urge the brick and mortar operators and the food truck operators to do that, to get together and see if they can figure out something they can live with. The second thing, with respect to enforcement, I understand what you're saying, but I want to be, we can't guarantee enforcement. We got people speeding all over the city. We got people running red lights all over the city. We got people killing people and not being enforced. We can't, the easier we can make enforcement, the more likely it is to be enforced. Which is why I like Mr. Williams' suggestion of, designated spaces that are painted orange or something like that. so that it's easy to be enforced.
Yes, sir. I understand that completely. I didn't mean to imply that, just because we make a rule that enforcement gets easy. I just think if there's some form of mechanism, maybe what Councilman Williams mentioned, or, some compromise we can come to. I think the reason that I got involved in this conversation was my food truck friends came to me because this ordinance scared them because no one had talked to them before they saw it. And that, not having spent much time in the city council process, because they're out there working, most Tuesdays they're running their truck, doing their lunch shift. And so they are completely open. We're completely open. My friends downtown who own businesses, I'm sure, we're all open to coming together and finding a solution that works for everyone now that we're all kind of having this conversation together.
Well, as Mr. Arledge indicated, sometimes the way we approach these things is to put something out there, put some concrete out there to generate discussion, because it's always easier to have discussion based on something in writing than something that's a concept. And so I don't think there are any, I'm not aware of any member of the city council who's irrevocably tied to the draft that's in front of us. I think we're all open to suggestions from all comers as to how it might be improved.
Okay, I think that's great. I think that that's a really good start for everybody I know that's interested.
Ms. Smith, I see you have joined us. We heard from two of your associates, and I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add from the parks and perspective.
Good evening. I think they covered most of it. We're trying to put guidelines together to make the process easier for food trucks to be able to be in the parks, but not have them overshadow the concession stands. So I believe I trust that my team covered it. Unless you guys have any additional questions for me directly.
We'd prefer to have, at least I would prefer to have an administrative solution to what happens in the parks as opposed to a legislative solution, so that there's more flexibility to address it. But that's my preference.
Yes, and I would agree, and it's trying to create guidelines of them coming through here, just like we do regular permits and processes.
Right. Okay.
Joel, can I just ask something before you, sure. I don't know if you're getting ready to close, but the licensure of these food trucks might be a way that from the top of the chain, not to mandate anything for parks and recreation, they have a better sense, but to somehow have a sticker or something that's very visible that says at least they met these certain standards for licensure, whether they had to show their health department certificate, because when we did a food cart for it was a coffee vendor, you might remember, that had certain criteria that had to be met because we didn't have any kind of understanding of what that kind of vendor would do. So I think starting with the licensure is how you can have one umbrella to make sure there are certain standards, and then for downtown it's whatever. But I do think that the licensure is where the council could write something that makes sure it's healthy, not hurting anybody, that someone's not coming in the veil of night, and a police officer or a revenue director can't tell the difference. But if without the sticker, they obviously could not proceed. So I think there's a way if we start with the license, which is already required apparently for food trucks.
Mr. Chair, we got a new person that joined us here. I don't know if she had something to say or.
Am I the new person?
You yes. Are the new.
Hello, I'm sorry. I'm a little flummoxed. I've been trying to get into this meeting for a while now. I'm from the Institute for Justice. We're a national nonprofit civil liberties law firm. We're based in Arlington, Virginia, but we work across the country on these issues. We have actually over 2 decades of experience regulating or helping cities regulate mobile vending.
Hey, Ms. Bennett, pronouncing your, if you would give us your name and address,
Sure.
please?
My name is Melanie Bennett. The Institute for Justice's address is 901 North Glebe Street in Arlington, Virginia.
And you have 3 minutes, Ms. Bennett.
Yes, sir. So thank you for your time, council. I didn't prepare any major talking points. It was more of, I wanted to call and see what was going on. But after hearing the meeting, we could really be of assistance. We've been working on these issues for over 2 decades. We have a model vending ordinance that I emailed to the clerk that can help with all of the issues that you're bringing up. Vendors can be regulated easily, and they provide so much benefit to the community. They're eyes on the streets at night when people are going about. They can see what's going on. They are provide the first rung of the economic ladder for people, especially various culinary options. We've done a lot of research on this issue, and vending food is safe. I heard a lot of people talk about raw chicken and all of these things. Inspections will find those bad vendors and weed them out, as will complaints. So once they get the permit, they have safe food. We did research of these carts in, I think, 7 major cities and found that vending food is as safe or safer than brick and mortar restaurants. They really only provide benefit, and there are various laws that can be brought up that ensure that the safety of the streets are maintained so that people don't park in the public right of way. There's absolutely no need for some kind of restriction between restaurants and vendors. Just as a restaurant can have another restaurant right next to it, there's no reason that a vendor should be regulated any differently. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I'm happy to continue this discussion later. I've sent the mobile vending ordinance that we've brought that ensures the safety and the healthfulness of the food. And we can go over that, and we're happy to tailor it for your statute. We're a law firm, so we can work with you to sit there and make it perfect for your statutes. And I just want to let you know that vendors are a benefit, and that especially right now, as people are struggling and trying to find a way to feed themselves and their communities, that this is an option for them. It's a cheaper version. They can test the market to see if they have an outlet for their food. And then they can start small and hopefully get to that brick and mortar business in the future. But it's too expensive to start right off the bat. So I hope that we can work together on this issue. And please know that vendors are good people. They're not here to make anyone sick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Do we have anybody else who'd like to address us today that has not spoken yet? Again, if you have some comments, additional comments that you would like to give us, please send those to the clerk. Clerk will deliver those to us and to our attorney, Mr. Arledge. What is the sense of the committee about where we go from here?
I think we need to continue to listen. If we listen to Ms. Bennett and to Mr. Tyndall, there's not only a willingness, but even an unknown party that before this meeting that are willing to help us. And once brick and mortar, and Scott talks to all of his friends, which is almost everybody in Mobile, I'm certain that they'll come up with something to propose to us that will benefit all of us.
Well, why don't we ask everybody to take the next month to get any information they have to us, and then give Mr. Arledge, give Mr. Arledge a couple of weeks to sift through what we receive and come up with a revised draft, and then we'll have another committee meeting. How's that sound?
Sounds awesome to me.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So
That's what we'll do then. Thank you, everybody, for